I'm actually glad that Charlie Kirk was murdered, but probably not for the reason you think. I was at work when I first found out. A fellow employee had wandered up to me, cell phone in hand, and asked, "Did you hear that Charlie Kirk just got assassinated?" And I, without even a moment's hesitation, responded, "Good! That Nazi white supremacist piece of shit."
Oh, okay.
Because I hadn't actually watched any of his debates. I was basing literally every single thing I believe about a human being with thousands of hours worth of publicly available recordings of himself openly expressing his opinions on a small handful of out-of-context clips that had been curated for me by algorithms and media organizations being funded by the political opposition.
Grace and peace, everybody. You saw the thumbnail, you saw the title. Let's talk about it. What happens when somebody who despised Charlie Kirk and his message has a change of heart? Let's go find out. This is a great video. Shout out, link will be, of course, down in the description. Let's go.
He once celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk. Now he's going super viral for having changed his mind. And as a former leftist myself, I've been on a similar journey. Let's talk about it. Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better. Guys, before we get into today's video, please like and subscribe. Today we're going to be doing a bit of a blind reaction. I've been seeing this video circulating online, and I'm thinking this is going to be my bread and butter as a former leftist. Apparently, this is a video of a guy who at first celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk, and now through a series of events has come to realize that he was wrong, and he's admitting that. So this is what I love to see, and I think there's a lot of room for people to go on this journey, especially after what we saw in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death. I spoke about it at length on this channel. I have many a video on the left's response to it, and what a devastating thing to see, the celebration of such a heinous assassination of somebody who was just trying to have conversation. So with that being said, I'm going to put my former leftist hat on and watch this video.
I'm actually glad that Charlie Kirk was murdered, but probably not for the reason you think. I was at work when I first found out. A fellow employee had wandered up to me, cell phone in hand, and asked, "Did you hear that Charlie Kirk just got assassinated?" And I, without even a moment's hesitation, responded, "Good! That Nazi white supremacist piece of shit."
Oh, okay.
I had never before witnessed such a perfectly blended expression of disgust, disappointment, sadness, and surprise, all through the window of another man's eyes, or experienced a silence so uncomfortable as the one that followed. And although that look on his face now haunts me more and more with each passing day, at the time, it only made me distrustful and upset. But little did I know that the sentence which followed would end up becoming the most profoundly psychologically impactful question that I've ever been confronted with. Have you ever actually watched any of his
Great
debates?
Question.
Okay.
That's a great question. Yeah.
This is so interesting to me.
Let me jump on before she jumps in. Shout out to her for sure. Let me jump in here real quick. A lot of people, myself included, had not listened to a full Charlie Kirk debate, discussion, lecture, Q&A, anything. They just heard sound bites. Since Charlie Kirk has passed, I've seen so much of his content, even the more controversial things, and a lot of the things that we've been told about him just don't rhyme. They just don't match when you watch the full context of what is being said. Let's go.
I can see so much of my former self in what he is describing. I don't know that I was the type of leftist that would have outright celebrated Charlie Kirk's death or said something to that effect about his death.
Right, that's pretty gruesome.
But I certainly would have been in the same ecosystem as somebody who was unbothered by the assassination of Charlie Kirk had it happened at the time I was a leftist. And that's something that you really do have to grapple with. And he's talking about that, the fact that his coworker reacted with such disgust. And at the time that didn't bother him, but now the thought of that haunts him. And I think a lot about who I was when I was a member of the woke left and how much really awful energy I had within myself and put out into the world. And it is an embarrassing thing to think about. It is something that sits with you of, oh my gosh, how many interactions could have gone so much better had I not been possessed by this ideology, and had I not been so judgmental and awful about my own political agenda, standing in opposition to others.
I just want to say, man, it is heartwarming and refreshing to see this young woman. She's taking the time to reflect over her own position and say, like, hey, I was wrong. There's so many people who don't reflect over their own positions, or they do reflect and they don't say that they're wrong. They don't see the problem. So shout out to her for sure for this. This is a great story.
So that's something that I think when you finally realize it, you think about for a really long time. Now he says the most profound question that he was asked was, have you ever watched any of his debates?
Right.
Or something to that effect. And that resonates with me so much. I talk a lot about getting through to left-leaning people or people who are super woke. And the thing that got through to me, although it didn't happen in the moment, was questions that people would ask to just honestly get a grasp on how it was that I believed the things that I believed. And these would be questions like, how did you get that information? Or have you listened to somebody else with an opposing view on this? And as leftism started to deteriorate for me, and as I started to watch the sort of inconsistencies and the things that I thought I believed and the way that I acted, I was reconfronted with these questions that people had asked in the past, and they would just keep popping up. They were little seeds that were planted. So even though at the time I probably would have had an awful response or not even listened to the question or not even heard the person out whatsoever, later on, as things started to fall and cascade and I started to realize, oh my gosh, I might be in the wrong room on this one, those questions pop back up. And now I had a sort of framework to go through and start finding answers for myself that led me in a different direction. So shout out to the coworker who, in the face of a really disgusting response about somebody's assassination, said, have you ever even watched any of his debates? Because there's a lot of other things you could have said in a moment like that probably would not have led to this result.
I decided to end the conversation immediately. This man was clearly a lost cause, one of those intellectually dishonest Kool-Aid drinking types who refuses to engage in good faith with any perspective which contradicts their outstandingly narrow and propagandized worldview. And by this man, I mean me. Because I hadn't actually watched any of his debates. I was basing literally every single thing I believe about a human being with thousands of hours worth of publicly available recordings of himself openly expressing his opinions on a small handful of out-of-context clips that had been curated for me by algorithms and media organizations being funded by the political opposition.
Okay, lots to unpack there. He said, yeah, what an awful person. You're closed-minded. You're not willing to hear anything. You're propagandized. And then he flips the script and says that was absolutely who I was. And when you are on the woke left, and I mean deep into wokeism, you are fueled by a sense of moral superiority. At least I was. And I think that's what he's speaking to. You can walk through the world with this sort of shield where you don't have to confront anything that anybody tells you or asks you, because you know that you're on the moral high horse. You know that you hold higher ground, and you know that you're better than everybody around you. And where obviously that is not true, it becomes this really safe place to be in your head where you never have to engage with somebody who disagrees with you. And I'm glad he flipped the script and said that's exactly who I was. And the reason I was that way is because I was seeing little clips and little out of context moments.
Me too.
Painted
Guilty.
a picture of the people that I disagree with. And again, it resonates with me so hard. I was living in a world that wasn't the reality. I painted a caricature of the people who disagreed with me. Just like awful, oppressive, Nazi white men. And it wasn't until I stepped out of that, started talking to people who disagreed with me, started actually listening to them in the context of what they were saying, that I realized, oh shit, I was definitely wrong about that. And that doesn't mean your ideology has to flip on its head and suddenly you're a right winger or anything like that. It just means that you placed an unnecessary amount of judgment on a group of people when you should have just waited and heard them out. And maybe you still disagree with their perspective. That's neither here nor there. It's just to say your moral superiority right now is shielding you from just listening. And sometimes you are going to find that the people who disagree with you are, in fact, correct. And what a powerful thing to be able to admit that, and to admit that you were actually manipulated by the things that you saw online, because so many people are every single day.
I foamed at the mouth, right along with the rest of those rabid and bloodthirsty dogs, gleefully mocking those who had been saddened by his death and downplaying the atrocity of it all by suggesting that political violence is just an unfortunate yet necessary step toward our coveted socialist revolution. That is, until I began to notice a common thread. The exact same comment being repeated ad nauseum in nearly every single online space. Have you ever actually watched any of his debates? I didn't think much of it at first. Of course, right-wingers are all regurgitating the exact same talking point. They're in a cult. They're brainwashed. It was an ordinary and boring morning on the day I found out that I am a monster. In that moment where my curiosity got the best of me and I decided to click on some random YouTube thumbnail of Charlie Kirk with his goofy and gummy smile in an attempt to reaffirm my preconceived biases. And it was an unusually stressful afternoon on that very same day when I spoke to my father for the first time in years, despite the fact that he had always loved and supported me unconditionally.
Ooh.
Oh, he's getting a little.
When he started talking and he started getting emotional, there's something else here. There's something deeper than how he responded to Charlie Kirk's death. And yeah, when you are a believer in this sort of ideology and you carry it with you, it is a weight that you carry through the world so long as you continue to believe that set of ideas. And what it does is it infiltrates every single part of your existence. You're constantly thinking about it. You're constantly judging other people based off of, I don't know, their skin color, their gender, their sexuality, the amount of privilege they have, whether or not they're an oppressor. And even deeper than that, it infiltrates your familial relationships. And you can end up cutting people off from your life because of political disagreement that should have never been cut out of your life in the first place. And I've seen this happen to so many people. In fact, it is, I think, one of the tenets of woke leftism to distance yourself from people who disagree with you politically because they're toxic. Cut them off, go no contact. Don't go to Thanksgiving or Christmas. These people do not deserve your time, your emotional labor. And I think he fell victim to that with his father. And he says he supported me unconditionally. He loved me unconditionally my entire life. And I still hadn't spoken to him in years. Wow.
That's broken.
That's a weight. And luckily he got that weight lifted off himself, because a lot of people don't get to that part in the journey. They get so stuck in their ideology that it just never happens. So maybe that's what he's talking about when he says, I'm actually glad Charlie Kirk died, and not in the way that he was before with that coworker, but in the way that it's allowed him to reconnect with his father. That's a super, super powerful thing. And again, a powerful thing to admit. And we can be mad that he had the reaction in the first place. And there's room to discuss that, but he's coming forward and saying, you know what? I'm laying the weapons down. I was wrong. And this guy's actually had a profound positive impact on my life, even though I couldn't give him a positive response or even a neutral response in death. Okay, let's keep.
And I just want to point out that I've said this 1,000 times. Leftist ideology does not promote life. It doesn't bring life-giving relationships, life-giving exchanges. It doesn't create life. It only parasites off of and siphons off of life, off of something that's living. Leftist ideology is literally a death cult. And I got a feeling that that's what this young man was experiencing. So let's see how he teases us out. Let's go.
Watching.
And it was a never-ending sleepless night, coming to terms with the fact that literally every single thing I thought I hated about the right, bigotry, stupidity, violence, vitriol, and narrow-mindedness was actually just an outward projection of hatred toward my own self.
Wow.
Charlie Kirk is my hero.
Man.
He opened my eyes to the cruel and manipulative nature of our political media, brought my family back together, and taught me how to love again. And to anyone who takes issue or offense with that, I'm going to do exactly what he would have done and challenge you to answer a simple, honest, and straightforward question. Have you ever actually watched any of his debates?
Woo! Wow.
Cooking. He cooked.
Wow. And wow. Yeah, this is just, it's a home run for me. And I like how he ends the video by talking about the very thing that broke through for him and passing that on to other people. Have you ever watched any of his debates? It's just one of those questions that if you are a leftist who's carrying a bunch of hate like this, one day you'll turn back around, hopefully, and you'll remember that this question was asked to you, even if you're not ready to hear it in the moment, even if you weren't ready to hear it in this video right now. I remember in being a leftist.
Shout out to Amala. Man, I really appreciate her. Not only her story, but this young man's story about, have you ever listened to one of Charlie Kirk's debates? And it doesn't even have to be Charlie Kirk. There's so many instances where the idea of listening to somebody and allowing them to tease out their ideas, share their opinions, get their feelings and thoughts out, actually isn't a bad thing. It's not going to, if you're standing on truth, it's not going to be a bad thing to listen to somebody, give them an opportunity to talk about where they are, maybe address it, maybe challenge it, maybe let it slide. Maybe it's not that big a deal. Maybe you realize, like, you know what, I had you all completely wrong. I don't know, but let me know what you think. Have you ever listened to a Charlie Kirk debate on your own? I know we listen to a lot here on this channel, but have you ever listened to one of Charlie Kirk's debates? And let me know what you thought about it. Were you a fan before his passing? Were you a supporter before, or did you come aboard after? Or maybe even to this day still hate Charlie Kirk? Let me know. I want to hear what your thoughts are. Comment down below. We look forward to hearing from you. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of the JWhit Podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please do me a favor and hit me up with that 3-piece special. Like the video, subscribe, and of course, share it with somebody who would also enjoy this type of content. And make sure you leave a comment, because I do pin the best comments to the top. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace.